So, hey, everybody, welcome back. It is another episode of the Two Big Guys in Grover podcast, our conversation series. I'm wearing real cloth today. I don't know if you guys didn't get the memo.
I got the memo, but it takes two of them because they don't make my size.
Oh, well, there's
We keep waiting for that 4X.
there's a challenge for the big and tall section of real cloth.
That's probably our fault because I don't make anything that fits them.
The man, the myth, the legend, Brandon Bates.
Even the ball cap's tied on my head.
Joining us today, and thank you for the most comfortable cap and hoodie that I have ever worn in my life. And I'm not kissing your butt. I don't care who you are.
You're not wearing the cap, right? You're actually.
I'm not wearing the cap today. But holy cow, comfortable stuff. I'm sorry you guys can't wear it.
I don't know. I don't know what that's like. I tried to wear the trucker hat. You know, the very first foam hat. Do you remember that? Yeah, I tried to wear that a little bit, and it just wouldn't ride.
Yeah,
I tried on like 3 vests. I tried to zip them together at the PBR finals this year.
You didn't try to zip.
I liked them all
together, dude.
Those ABBI vests. I thought,
are
man,
you kidding me?
I saw Narducci walk by with his, and it fit him about like a Tommy boy. And so I saw him in it, and I thought, well, I'll try this.
You didn't try
not even close.
nothing. You didn't try.
So Brandon, how's things going in at your place right now?
Man, really good. I mean, I I live in a really, really good place to be locked down. So, once the snow stops and which it kind of has, it was, almost 60 yesterday and it'll be in the mid 50s today. And we're starting to have some springtime weather. I mean, it's out, we live at about 6,500 feet. So it gets, it stays pretty cold here, but I mean, it's, we have way too much house, and so that means we're lucky enough to have enough room to move around in that house. So, like right now, I'm in my favorite room ever, which is the theater room.
Nice.
So those are my sports memorabilia, and
It'd be really cool if it wasn't full LSU.
What's that?
It'd be really cool if it wasn't full LSU.
Here, I'll give you guys a little tour so you can see. Like, here's all of our national championship stuff.
Nice.
Final Four. Hang on, I'm not done here. There's our now we're into the. I don't have the new national championship stuff yet up, but you can see that, and then probably like hands down my the other most prized possession that I have in here was the LeBron James rookie jersey.
Oh, there you go. Oh, nice.
In here, a little bit of OU stuff.
Hey, wait. Go back to that one. There you go. Go back to that. Ooh.
Which one, the OU stuff?
Yeah, the Boomer Sooner stuff. There we go.
That's badass. It's all they're all the Heisman Trophy winner autographs is
cool.
what they are.
That's awesome.
And then this other one is super rare. So this is the Arnold Palmer, Jack Nicklaus, and Tiger all autographed.
There you go.
So there will definitely never be another one of those because Arnold's dead. So anyway,
right. Well,
so
thank you for that show off tour of your man.
Yeah,
cave.
yeah. I thought I'd flex a little bit. I just wanted to flex a little bit.
That's what 20 years in the PBR gets you right there.
Right.
So for our listeners, if you recognize that voice, Brandon Bates was the in-house voice of the PBR for, gosh, was it 20 years?
It was 18. It was 18. I announced my first two at that time. There were Bud Light Cup events in Nashville and Guthrie in 2002, and then in 2003 they hired me to do the bulk of the tour, which I think was like 23 or 24 stops that year, and that was kind of it. I mean, I thought that I would probably do that, be lucky enough to have that job for, I don't know, a year or so. I didn't think I was good enough anyway for them to keep me. And then they kept me. So after being there for so long, I don't know. I think earlier in my career, if I had made a transition and had a desire to kind of want to do television, that probably would have been a jump that I'd made. And then when Ride Pass came out in 15 or 16, whatever year that was, and kind of started to make that transition, and at that time just realized that I was really, really passionate about being a live announcer, about bringing live moments to live crowds. And I may have wanted to do television in another sport, but I don't think I ever wanted to do television in the PBR. So then going back to the live booth, for 2018 and even 2019, a lot of people don't know this story. In fact, I don't think I've really ever even told it to anybody, but I was in Bismarck, North Dakota at Chad Berger's event last summer, and it was just like a ton of bricks hit me all at once. And I just was like, I'm like, this is it. Like, I'm done. I'm going to finish out my contract. I'm going to go to the remaining of these events in 2019, and then I'm going to retire. And I called my wife that day and I said, I'm done. And she was like, no, you're not. You're crazy. Blah, 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 whatever. You say this all the time. You've been saying this for 10 years since we've been married. And I was like, no, I'm like, this is different. I'm like, I'm really, really done. And so, yeah, I just kind of put it in motion, and I put a countdown clock on my phone, and it had a countdown app, and, to the final day of the PBR finals. And it wasn't, it was really just because, like, I still love the sport and I love the organization, and I love so many things about it. But I realized that I was running out of time. And what I mean by that is, like, I was fortunate enough to do my dream job at such a young age, just call it 20 to 40. And by the time, I got to 40, I'm like, look, if you're gonna make it in business, if you're gonna be successful in other things, if you're ever gonna become a philanthropist, if you're ever gonna have a shot at being able to make a lot of money, not to live in a bigger house or have more cars or more sports stuff, but to be able to give that money away to help build churches in Africa, or help, this sounds super dramatic, but, cure a disease, or any of that kind of stuff, right? Like, I knew that I had to stop. Like, I had to stop wasting my time. And not that it was a waste, not disrespectful to anybody, but I knew that I had to stop wasting my time and being gone Thursday through Sunday to be able to focus on the next chapter of my life, if I was lucky enough to live, because I figure I've got like 40 to 60, right? Like, I think those are the big money making years. And those were the years that I really wanted to, like, kind of just live and focus, and take the time to focus on business and really the next chapter. And for me, the mindset was, if because we'll go back to this in a minute, but if I had the same tenacity from 40 to 60 to do business things and other stuff that I did whenever I was 18, 19, and 20, that got me to the PBR, I knew it was a no-brainer that it would happen. Because, I mean, man, let me tell you, whenever I was 17, 18, 19 years old, I called every stock contractor in the company. I called every announcer in the country. I called every announcer in the country. It didn't matter, like, who you were. Like, I was calling and telling you that I was the next greatest thing since sliced bread, and I wanted to announce your rodeo. And I left home at 20 and went to work for, a small rodeo company in Pennsylvania, amateur rodeo company there. Like, literally got in my truck. Like, we didn't have Google Maps then, right? Like, I had a Rand McNally. I had a map and a truck, and left and drove to Pennsylvania and lived up there for 6 months, and went to, like, 40 rodeos during the summer. And my point is, like, there was just nothing from the time that I was, coming out of high school that was going to stop me from being what I wanted to be, was one of the best announcers in the country, and I wanted to make a living doing that. So having that same type of tenacity, I knew that if I approached business that way, that I thought I would likely be successful as well. So it was just a time thing. I just felt like I ran out of time. And I had done everything that I wanted to do, and I could have probably stayed in that job for another 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, but that would have just been what defined me. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, nothing wrong with that. I just had other things, and I wanted to test myself to see if I would either succeed or fail in those other things. And it just came to a matter of running out of time or not.
Mm. So where did this rural cloth concept come from?
Man, I just felt like, looking around throughout all the years, I was looking at the other brands that had a lot of success. I felt like, looking at Wrangler, Cinch, and Area, at the big three, like, they had success. That is a viable customer. But where I felt like the market niche was more in the direct to consumer space for rural cloth, because I wanted to be a really, really heavy D2C company and not so much a, business to business or a retail type structure. The real kind of brain spark, for it came in a sense of like looking at another company out there called Kuyu, who makes hunting products that's 100% direct to consumer. They make a high end product. They have no retail presence. They only go direct to consumer. And then also a little bit of the combo of that is the direct to consumer relationship that another outdoor company called Sitka has. They're pretty heavy retail, but they also have a very heavy, direct to consumer side. So the biggest catalyst for me looking at those two companies were they weren't in the Western demographic, but they still sold products to a lot of people that lived a rural lifestyle, hunters, fishermen, those types of things. And I knew that if you built a quality small batch product that even if it would be expensive, that the consumer would still respond to it if it was quality and if it was very well made and if it had, extreme detail. So that was really the thing is I looked at Sitka and I looked at Kuyu and I thought, okay, if I make a really, really high end product, even though it's going to be more expensive than Wrangler Cinch and Ariat, I still think that in a small batch fashion, this consumer will purchase it and buy it and go forward. So, and we had a lot of success in our first, I really call it our first 12 months. And we started the company in July of 2018, but we really didn't do much of anything until December of 2018. Um, and I think that year we probably did 180,000 in total sales. Going forward to 2019, 2019 last year we did 1.3 million in sales, and we're 200% above year over year even now with what's going on. And I think it's because our sales have actually picked up. Now we have started we're having a massive sale right now where the site wide is 40% off, and the reason why is because it's just our 2019 inventory that we're clearing out to make room for our 2020 inventory and some of our new products that'll drop this summer. But our company is still thriving even in the middle of this whole Corona pandemic, and the reason why is because our customer isn't massively affected by this. They are on the retail front, but once again, we're not into retail. We're only in the retail in like 34 locations at Murdoch's, and that's up in the Northwest. Those stores are still open. Customers are still buying feed. Customers are still buying things for their, and they're still picking up occasionally our hats and T-shirts. But on our direct consumer side, I mean, our business is still thriving, and like I said, we're our online store is 200% up where it was last year at this time.
I think it's Cris and I can contest a lot of it because we stepped out and did something completely different and started something that was very similar in the likeness of just starting something from scratch. We drew it on a napkin and started from the ground up. Granted, completely different in products, completely different in really the end consumer for us is very, very niche. So we have a very small market. And we just have to try and control that market. But understanding that what I think is great is that you went from announcing boat ridings to jumping in, diving in, however, head first into this company, and it's shown the success because.
But it's not just been roll cloth either. There's been some other things, breadcrumbs, some of the other things you've had, ideas on.
Yeah, I mean, but even while I was still announcing, I think that was 2015 when we started that company. I helped out and was a minority owner in a outdoor technology company called Breadcrumb that had a lot of really initial success and has kind of changed its business model. I've since sold my shares of that company, so I no longer have any ownership there. I have some advisory shares, but I did sell there and was able to learn a lot in business and learn a lot of things of what not to do. That was really my first kind of going out there on my own and making an investment in a space, and I was invested in that company for about 3 years, and then like I said, sold my shares back to that company really to start rural and kind of focus on it because it became apparent to me like when I left the PBR and when I left I left. I was a TV host for RMEF for a long time. I hosted their outdoor television show. I left that. I left Breadcrumb. I mean, I literally left everything to go all in on rural. and just focus no matter what, be able to focus on rural 1000%, which has been really scary. I mean, look, I'll tell everybody, for any entrepreneurs that may be thinking about starting a business or going, like, I went from making a really good amount of money to making significantly less than that. I mean,
Feel you.
We know that
Same,
feeling.
same.
yeah, like significantly less. So if you think that it's all rainbows and unicorns and you start a business and you get rich, like I took my first paycheck, my very, very first paycheck from rural this month. And it was really more of necessity than it was anything. Like, I mean, think about that. We go from May to or July 2018 to here we are now, April 2020, right at almost 2 years. And I just finally took my very first minuscule paycheck from rural cloth this month.
But down that road, we know that well. For us, it's always been on the 100X side, different than clothing and everything. Is we have a mold in everything. We see something that needs to change within the sport, or we find a new piece of technology or material. We've got to go back to the drawing board. We've got to go back and change our molds. And so and it's hard to absorb that cost day in, day out, over and over and over and
Well,
over.
it's constant. It's that constant discovery of new technologies. As I'm sure with you're looking for a better, you're looking for an upgrade of a material or something that's trendy or performs, all that kind of stuff. It doesn't matter if it's a padding, if it's the titanium mixture, the titanium alloy, or the ABS, or it's constant, and people just don't realize that, do they?
No, I mean, it never stops. I mean, the one thing that I would be envious of you guys in the sense of, like you guys don't have multiple SKUs, right? Like you have three: small, medium, large,
Right.
And in the apparel space, the SKU management is what's an absolute nightmare. Every time we launch a T-shirt, that we add in 5 different SKUs for one colorway. So, you imagine that, all of a sudden you've got 30 T-shirts, and if you have 3 colorways in those 30 T-shirts, like the SKUs, you're in the hundreds of SKUs just on your T-shirt line. It never stops, man. And SKU management is the only thing I hate about this business is SKU management. So and look, rural for me is one of those things where I wanted to do it, I wanted to prove it. I want to continue to grow it, and I think it'll take us another 2 to 3 years to really get it to where I want it to be. And then it'll be in a sellable position, and I want to sell it to a VC firm or another investor that will be able to have the funds to take it, to a whole nother level. Because I have no problem being, oh, that was the guy that started rural, instead of being, oh, that's the guy that owns rural. I don't care about any of that. I just don't care about any of that. I care about taking steps to do what I want to do later in life. And my life goal now is really like I want to be a philanthropist. I want to have enough money to be able to help other people and do other things, and put my kids through college and pay my mortgage, and that's pretty much it.
That's pretty good goals.
Yeah.
Hey, let's go back and talk about Western sports and the PBR. The
Yeah.
change that you saw over your 18-year span with the PBR on the Premier Series. Talk a little bit. A lot of people think, well, it's just the same thing. It's cookie cutter every year, but there's huge advancements that happen within that tour every single season.
Well, I think the advancements that I saw happen, were just the talent continues to get better. I think that's the thing that gets lost in translation with the sport is, unless you're a real PBR historian, unless you're somebody that looks at a lot of tape and things like that, you don't realize the difference from 2003 to 2019. I mean, it's insane. I mean, if you take this group of guys, and those old timers are going to despise this when I say it, and they're
No, we
hate it.
We live it.
It is what it is. They can be mad at me or not. But if you take this group of guys and you put them in 2003, let me go back even a step further. You take this group of guys and you put them in 1994 when this whole thing started, they ride 90%. They ride 90%, maybe 95. Like that's how drastically different the sport is today and the talent level is today versus the bull power, then. Now, I'm not saying that the talent level in 1994 wasn't as good. They just didn't have the livestock to bring it out of them. You know, if you put Adriano and Tuff and Lambert and God, I mean Mark Kane and those guys, and you force them for a couple of years to get on this caliber of bull, I think they rise to the occasion. I think they may even be better. And the reason they may be better is because let me just give you the side of it. Those guys were tougher.
They were tougher.
Right.
They were just tougher. And they probably get better to a point, it's just like every other sport, right? Like you are as good as your competition. It is just that simple.
Agree.
You just are. You're as good as your competition, and the competition level on the bull side has just gotten so much better over the years that's really been the change. I think safety now is such a big deal. I mean, I think with what you guys have done with 100X and what that looks like, nobody, that's the only problem with the helmet space, right? Like nobody knows how many lives you save because you just save them and move on, right? Like it just, they take the shot, they get stepped on, or they get, this destroyed or
Becomes
whatever.
routine.
It becomes routine, and like you never know, how many lives your product has saved. So, that's that's the deal, right? Like, I mean, it's like going back to the Daytona wreck, when you had, oh my God, was Robbie, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you go to the Daytona wreck. I mean, like his helmet and the Hans device and everything that happened in that wreck and all the technology, like, all everybody's going to say is, "Oh my God, he walked away from it." But there's no measuring stick to say.
Right.
But I can tell you that if you go back 10 or 15 years, he's dead as a hammer.
Well, 2001, you go back to Earnhardt.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, he doesn't live through that. So, yeah, but I mean, technology. I mean, there is some technology that I hate. I'll tell you the truth. I mean, when it comes to the sport and how much it's changed now, you know, I love the judges. I just wish they would make a call. I hate everything being able to go back to replay all the time and all the rule implementations and different things and those are a lot of things where I think the PBR rules committee is always trying to strive for what they believe is perfection, right? Um, like penalizing guys for not taking re-rides. Like let that shit go. Like that's just part of
right.
That'll all work itself out.
That's part of the
throughout the
decision
course
making.
of the year. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, let those guys make that decision. And if Silvano Alves continues to win doing that, then maybe the other guys just need to get better.
Right.
I mean, whatever. I mean, I know I just went back like 7 years. I mean,
but that's what's helped shape the sport though right now is that our younger guys have seen that. We've had this conversation over and over. Our younger guys have had an opportunity to learn from the guys from 94 and forward. And so, yeah, they may not be as tough. Our bulls are definitely better, but they have been able to there's more of a process in place for them to be a better athlete. Same goes for the NFL, same goes for golf. I mean, there's been so many advancements in other sports that we have seen a growth in our riders that we haven't seen, and we're starting to really see this crop of young guys that have grown up in the sport. I mean, 25 years, we've got some 21 and 22-year-old kids, young men that are really handy, but they've grown up in the process. They had something to push for.
So a couple weeks ago, something unprecedented happened in the PBR. The coronavirus hits, and I know you've played the empty arenas before, sort of empty, but with maybe 100 people, or Hollywood, Florida, that had 50 at it that one year.
Never like that.
But we played to 10,000 empty seats in Duluth, Georgia, to put on pretty much put on a TV show. What'd you think about that?
No, I mean, I thought, I thought it was, look, it's really tough. It's tough to sit here and look at it. I mean, I thought it was great, and it was one of the only ones in a really long time that I've actually watched all the way through, because it was super interesting to take a look at, and so so I did watch it. I think at that point in time, like I think we're all at the moment gauging, the significance of this coronavirus, right? Like how real is it? What's the threat really like? I thought Gleason did a great job of explaining to people, on television then, why they decided to do it, because the PBR has a lot of independent contractors.
Yeah.
And those independent contractors depend on that cash to be able to feed their families and make their payments and those kinds of things. So, I understand to know why he's absolutely fighting tooth and nail to try and have these events, and specifically that one. Um, now going and understanding what I think we're starting to really understand about this virus is, everybody's just probably got to park it for a little while and just let this thing play out. But going back to the actual event and watching it, I mean, I thought it was super interesting. I love the fact that you could hear the guys pretty plainly on the back of the buck and shoots. I think that's a lot of things that get lost. I know that from CBS and NBC over the years, that was one of David Neal's big things is. He thought there was so much chatter and so many things going on and so much ambient noise happening on the back of the buck and shoots that he always wanted to try to capture that, but it's just impossible in a live arena. And for the first time, fans had the opportunity to capture it and hear, what those guys are saying or cheering or, the coaching process and all that kind of stuff. So I thought for the fans, it was, really, really interesting.
Yeah, it was very much a real weekend to to pull off some stuff and to to give our fans a different look at this sport. It was a proud deal to be a part of. It was weird and very different, but I thought we put out a pretty good product that weekend.
So I have a question for you. We, as in the rodeo world, have those that have grown up in it or come into it. There's an itch and a desire. There's a certain part of gypsy in all of us. Now that you've completely stepped away. I mean, I know you just did the American, but for the most part, your day-to-day no longer revolves around the rodeo world. What's next? I mean, do you have the itch? Is there something? I mean, because very, very few in your position have ever stepped away and not come back.
Yeah, and I don't know that I won't come back. I think when I say come back, I mean in some capacity, right? Like I'm never going to be the main guy on tour again. I don't unless God forbid something happens to one of those announcers and or three of them, or you. Sorry, Scott. if something happens,
put my mask back on.
It's something bad, I mean, there's always circumstances, and I've learned a lot in my life to never say never. A couple things have happened recently, though. Like, I did have a desire to, I've always wanted to kind of be a success in rodeo as well. That's where I started. I had done quite a few bigger rodeos, like, selected to do the Dodge National Circuit Finals when it was really good in Pocatello, Idaho. And, I did Cheyenne with Justin McGee, and I've done some other bigger rodeos as well. And, now the American. I've wanted to do, 2 or 3 or 4 a year. But stepping away, I mean, from the, look, Richard Jones calls me, still we're really good friends, and he'll call me and say, hey, I've got a double up. Do you want to go? And I'll say no, but I really appreciate it. But don't stop calling, because there may come a time. This whole coronavirus thing has kind of humbled me a little bit, because I was riding such a high horse on I'm going to go and I'm going to make it in business and I'm going to do this and I'm never going to look back. And there's just, I had that mentality where I'm never, ever going to look back. And now, like I told my wife the other night, I'm like, if the PBR calls and says, hey, we got to double up and we could use some help and it pays this and it's a one-day event, like, I'll probably go. Just because I've learned now I think a lot of us, probably all three of you included as well, and whoever's listening, for the first time in our generation, in our lifetime, we understand why our grandparents had that Great Depression mentality. When it's sunny and the hay can be harvested, like, go get that shit.
Yeah.
Pull it.
And that's kind of where I think we're all coming to now is, no, I don't have any plans of coming back to it, but I'm not going to try to be some, I don't know, like, Zoot Dove was crazy as a run over cat, but I always admired the way he left.
Absolutely.
I always admired the way he left when he left. And that was a guy, for those of you, no one listening has any idea who that is. He was
including me.
What's that?
Including me.
He was phenomenal. He was
Yeah, I
so
mean, Zoop
good.
Dove was an announcer. Zoop Dove was an announcer that essentially announced that and I don't know if this is exactly accurate, but pretty accurate. This is a guy that basically announced the NFR, grabbed his briefcase, and was like, "I'm gone." I mean, like, and you didn't
Yep.
see him on the beach. You didn't see pictures of him on Facebook because it didn't exist. Like, you just didn't see him anymore. Like, he was just gone. And hell, I don't even know if he's still alive. Like, I have no clue.
Yeah,
Like,
he is.
He's
Somebody
alive.
somebody ran across him the other day, but
Yeah,
you
no,
still don't see much of him.
and
I mean, nothing.
and was good. Like legitimately for his
Well-
time was unbelievable, and he did. He literally walked away from the sport, and that's why I said people like yourself that spent 20 years in that position. We don't have any because we lost Hadley a couple years ago. Tallman is still going strong. Boyd, even with the changes he's made, if you go to the top of the game in the announcers world, those guys are still here. Nobody ever walks away unless they pass away.
Yeah, and I didn't want that to happen to me, right? Like I just didn't want to I wanted to go from like the top, like I did everything that I wanted to do, and then I just wanted to step away. And I don't know, but I always had that. I mean, even whenever I was 20, I remember announcing, the Chris Shivers $1 million little yellow jacket moment, like in 03 or 04. And I just remember, with even with Feist, who, love and respect and work for him a long time. But like, like when you are 60, 70 years old, like I just didn't want to be that. Nothing wrong against those guys by any means. Like it just wasn't what I wanted to do. Like I just had different passions, and like I said, it just came down for a fact of me is like I just wanted to be able to say, okay, I tried this, I conquered it, I did it, and now it's time to go see if I could do something else.
Did you miss Madison Square Garden though?
No,
Really? I figured that would have been one that you would have
I'm
missed.
not. I just. I never like. I'm never comfortable in that city. I've never been comfortable in that city. I mean, obviously it got canceled now, but they asked me to do Rodeo New York back a couple of months ago, and I said no. I don't like New York, and not against anything of anybody that lives there. Like I have a lot of friends that live there. I'm kind of an introvert, and I'm never ever been comfortable in that place.
So there's no sports going on. I mean, you can catch a cornhole tournament now that was 2 months later. What in the world is a sports better guy like you doing right now? I mean, are you betting on the birds fighting
Gambling
in the
on the stock
backyard or the weather? Gambling on the stock market. There you go.
Well, woo.
I was gonna try to find my phone. I don't even know where it's at. I'm looking. I mean, I'm up like 13% today, so I'm doing pretty good.
Nice. But you are a sports connoisseur when it comes to, and I think that's one thing that, like, that's one thing I wish that I would have done more was study other sports, because you have always had a way of telling a story to make a sports fan understand what our sport is about, and that's one thing where I've always kind of envied and looked up to you on that, because you search outside of Western sports to be able to bring fans into what we're doing by telling a story a different way. You've changed the game in doing that.
Well, I mean, I think, by the way, on the stock market, I'm just looking. I'm up 12% today. We're doing pretty good. We're gambling. So far, my day gain's about $1,400, so I'm doing okay.
There you go.
Now tomorrow I'll probably lose $3,000, so don't so it evens out. No, I mean, yeah. Look, I that was always kind of one of the things that I was a huge sport. Number one, I didn't come from a rodeo background. I don't think a lot of people don't realize that about me. Like my mom was the vice president of a bank. My dad was an operations manager for John Deere, like on the industrial side, not farm and ranch. And I grew up in a subdivision in South Louisiana. My parents, I mean, this is going to make me sound like I've had a silver spoon in my mouth my whole life. And I kind of have. Like, I mean, now my parents haven't, other than education and kind of school of hard knocks, but like, and a little bit of money is all parents do, right? As you're 16, 17, 18 years old. But like, no, there was never a big trust fund or, hundreds of thousands of dollars. There's maybe a few $100s here or there. So I'm entirely self-made. But as I grew up, my parents were, we were members of a country club. Like we paid played golf, and but I was a sports fanatic. Like it, I was on the swim team. I played baseball. I played basketball. I ran track. Like I did everything in the sports world that I played football. Everything that you could do. And I just as I became really involved in rodeo at about the time I was 12 or 13, there was a few neighborhood kids in the state that I lived that were fairly good at it, and I just got bit, man. Like I got bit by this bug, and I just loved it and the raw nature of it. And so anyway, that was kind of what progressed to me into through high school. I decided I was going to try to ride bulls. I was terrible at that. Like I just didn't have what it took. And lucky for me, I was able to admit it to myself at a pretty young age and move on. But yeah, when I decided to start announcing, one of the things that I was never ever good at, and I couldn't stand in other announcers, and still to this day can't, is the hokey nature of them trying to say something really cool to sound cool. Or I don't. Roger Mooney could walk up and hit me in the face with a baseball bat. I don't know him from Adam. We've never. I think we may have had one conversation in 20 years. But like I'm not a fan of that style. Like that's okay. That's him. It's made him a lot of money and really successful. That's just not me. I've always felt like what's missing from rodeo and what's missing from sports or Western sports is the ability to be able to wrap it all together. And like you said, tell that story and make other fans of sports understand the magnitude or situations or the moment. Or if a guy rides one for 94 points, that's the equivalent of hitting a 360-foot bomb over the Green Monster in Fenway. That's the equivalent of Jess Lockwood in round number 6 or 7, whatever the hell rounds they are at the PBR finals now, of riding that final bull. And that is your game 7. That is your buzzer beating shot. That is your Jordan moment. Like, and being able to use those analogies and bring them together, for fans on that stage. Like I wanted to be a sports announcer. I didn't want to be a hokey, hey, how cool am I? I just made something rhyme announcer. That just wasn't what I wanted to be.
Where would I'm going to ask a where would it rank question? Your obviously your ability to sell, to bring everything together. It's probably I didn't grow up in rodeo. I was a coach, all that kind of stuff. But the last 5 years, my favorite parts of the events were, especially when Jose and Jesse and Outlaw, were coming down. It's not an easy sell. People are like, oh well, it's exciting. It's an easy sell. No, it's not. It's your last 3 riders of most events, especially the finals. I got goosebumps night after night after night. Where does you think about a Chase Outlaw? Think about his experience, and then not just coming back and being on tour and stuff, but really he was in it until the last 3-4 nights of the season. Where does something like that rank? How many where would that rank throughout your 18 years?
Well, it's funny you bring that particular moment up, because that setup to me, like I get chills thinking about it now. Like that setup coming out of the locker room. Let me give you a really good story that just insiders don't know. So I was doing the math, and I was really, really sure that Chase couldn't win the world championship. And I assume you're talking about the final round of the world finals this year, especially.
Yep.
So I was doing the math, and I was really, really sure that Chase couldn't win the world title no matter what. But I also the only 1% shot when I had done the math that he had was to be 98 on Smooth Operator. And I had left the announcer stand. Super emotional day for me anyway. Like there were multiple times that you go back and if you look at me, like I'm choked up multiple times during that day because I know it's the last day. I go back to the locker room. I have to pee, and I go take a leak in the locker room. And as I'm coming back out, all the judges are coming out of the hall with me back into the arena, and I huddled them together, and I said, guys, I love you all, but I want you to know that I'm about to throw you under the bus, and I'm going to drive over you. And then I'm going to back
up. Yeah.
and those guys, they were like, they were kind of like, what? I said, just stick with me and understand that this isn't personal. This is just a moment. And so when we came back out of that break and we get in there, like, I know he's got to be 98. I still go back and think to this day that the biggest travesty in this sport that I've ever seen was Cooper Davis in Atlantic City on that bull. Not because I have a close relationship with Cooper Davis, because it was fundamentally and singularly the
Yep.
greatest bull I'd have ever seen. If you were ever going to mark a guy 99 and a half, keep in mind, no one should ever be 100, because there's no way that both can be perfect. The bull can't be perfect and be 50, because if he's 50, then the guy didn't ride him. And so therefore, the most perfect score you should ever see in the history of this sport should be 99 and a half. So I thought if you were ever going to mark a guy 98 to 99, that should have been the moment. And I felt like they missed it. And I just, God love them. They're human, but I felt like they missed it. So that was the story. I was like, look, you guys can, I remember being on the announcer stand and saying it. I'm like, you guys can, and basically what I was saying from the microphone to all the fans there is like, you might think I'm full of shit, but I want you to understand, and I want you to know the story of the particular bull that Chase Outlaw has, and he has to be 98 points. But there's only one bull that can get him to 98 points, and it just happens to be this one, and let me tell you why. So I think that if we had just told, from a normal announcer standpoint, and just told the fans, look, he's not out of it, but he's got to be 98, everybody would have been like, oh my God, like, we know that's never going to happen.
No.
But
you made them believe it. You made them believe it. You made us all believe it.
But the difference is I wasn't really just trying to make people believe it. That's been the difference maker in me over 20 years than a lot of announcers in rodeo and whatever, is like, I believe it. Like, those are passion moments. There's multiple times in those where, like, I get choked up. Like, you may not hear it and you may not see it, but like, I am so passionate about what's happening in that arena and just trying to cram it in your brain to where, I want people to really, really understand that, like, I'm not just trying to sell you a bunch of crap. Like, I'm trying to tell you that, like, I feel this in this moment as I'm sitting in your seat with you. Like, this should be the experience that you're having when you're watching the sport.
I felt it this year. I mean, I said it multiple times. We were standing up there, and when you went to, there was a point in the, I think it was Saturday night's round, you went to the camera with your finger for the first time that I'd ever watched you do that. I don't know if you even remember doing it, but you went with your finger to the camera, and people outside of the arena didn't get to see that, but those of us that were there got to see it on the big screen and watch you do it. Instantly, you felt the energy that you were expressing was amongst everybody in that building. And it was that fast. And it wasn't until you were on your mic and then you went to the camera and you started pointing at the camera. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I remember. I mean, it was, like, I remember, probably one of my favorite rounds was Friday night. Sunday was honestly my favorite, but like, I had been, that was the thing, right? Like, I had been looking forward to that World Finals, all year since June, when I had made up my mind that was going to be the last one. I'd been looking forward to that moment just because I knew going in there, like, I was going to put everything out there. Like, I was going to leave absolute no stone unturned, and just say everything that I'd wanted to say about, and obviously not about me, but about the moments. Like, every analogy that I wanted to use, every passion moment that I wanted to try to fit in, every time it became important, like, I knew that, like, I wanted to leave that lasting memory of, how passionate and powerful the sport could be.
It had to be like a favorite, right? I mean, this ending on that note, having that, making that decision, and then as it played out, of having, the inferno of competition, or the level of how important every ride was going to be during that. It had to be one of your favorite years of your career, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. There's no doubt. I mean, it was great, and it was, like I said, it was super emotional. I mean, I cried like a baby. After the event was over with, and it was, just super, super emotional. And but it was just because of 20 years of relationships, and knowing knowing all those people, and that being your entire life. And let me tell you, it has had its struggles, right? I mean, I think that, I think that, not getting on that airplane wasn't that I miss Madison Square Garden. It wasn't. It was just a life transition. It's been really really difficult, and I don't want to say depression, but I mean there's been some kind of depression type
A sense of loss.
experience. Yeah, sense of
Yeah.
loss, some type of experience of not having something to look forward to every single week, and that being your entire life for so long.
Hey,
That
the rest of the rodeo world's going through it right now.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
we all know what it's like.
Everybody
right
knows
now.
what that feeling is
I
like
know,
this
like
year.
everybody's experiencing exactly what I went through from January through February, right? So I guess it also looks like I picked a hell
You,
of a year to retire.
yeah, you picked a great time to get out.
So no, man. I mean, it's good, and I do think that there's going to be a few that I'm going to. Like I said, I did the American. I actually did a Bulls and Bronx event in Salt Lake City in early February for Tommy Joe Lucia. I've got the Oakley PRCA rodeo, which is right here in my backyard. I can, it's like literally a couple hundred yards from here. And then I've got Days of 47 in Salt Lake City. So I've got four, really good events, and three of the four are in my backyard here in Salt Lake City and in Utah. So it's perfect.
And you got more time with the girls at home.
Lot of time. I talked about me wanting to leave because I wanted to start businesses and I wanted to do this and I wanted to do that. The one thing that I didn't say is that a major part of that played into was the fact that I have three kids. I've got a 12-year-old who is 12-year-olds become increasingly challenging. As they get 13, 14, and 15, like it just gets worse from what I understand. But I know that when those
I've heard
hormones and
that.
I've got a 16-year-old and a
attitudes start to kick
14-year-old.
in, like it's pretty crazy. But I've also got a 4-year-old. I've got a 1-year-old. So I've got three girls at home that need their dad and need their dad for stuff on the weekends and dance competitions and whatnot. And I just felt like it was time for me to be home.
So what are you doing with your time right now in the
Oh,
Corona?
well, I mean,
Hiking, do anything?
yeah, I mean, we live in a place where we're fortunate enough to be able to get out of our house and be social distance away from people, so we're able to go hike a little bit and get out. And there's some trails that you won't run into another person, and there's a little bitty country store right around the corner from our house, and they have pretty much everything that we need. And I mean, we've got a couple weeks worth of food, and we cleaned up our basement yesterday. We were actually getting ready to sell our house because we're getting ready to put it on the market because the market was so high. So we're getting ready to put our house on the market. We're looking to possibly make a move to Bozeman, Montana, but we've kind of obviously put that on hold now. So but we've just been painting and kind of cleaning things up and just getting, just I don't know, home stuff, man. Like we have movie nights every single night, and so yeah. I mean, I don't know how to flip my camera around. Or I'd show you I'd show you the projector screen.
Well, being stuck at home, it ain't all that bad. It just ain't
No,
all that bad.
I mean, man, I'd be in a full blown. I couldn't imagine right now living in New York or L.A. or hell, even St. Louis or
Yeah.
some of these bigger cities where you're stacked on top of one another. And I just like I just could not imagine the panic level. But man, I got to tell you though, like I'm just not sure. I don't know. I'm just not sure how many people have had this thing and have not. That's the crazy part for me is I mean like I supposedly I had the flu when I went to I got it like the Friday before the American started. I started feeling sick and kind of had a medium grade fever and kind of nasally and just and really fought to keep my voice on Saturday night. Didn't think I was going to have it at all on Sunday, and then luckily got it and it kept enough to where it held up. Um, but just got super sick, really fatigued. One of the main symptoms that I have read about that a lot of people have had is their eyes have hurt, like just a weird eye pain. And I remember being in a hotel room like that Friday night before the American, thinking, I'm like, my God, my eyes hurt. Like, why it's so strange? Like, why do my eyes hurt? Um, and I had a really bad cough for like 3 or 4 days. I mean, like not the worst I've ever had, but like a really bad one for, after I got home. Um, but I just, I remember asking a doctor while I was there. I was like, "Do you think I got this?" And he's like, "Have you been anywhere that you should get it?" And I'm like, "No." I'm like, "I have." I'm like, "This is the only place I've went all year," and just super weird. But I think at that point in time, that was early March, right, where people are just thinking that you had to have traveled to China, or you're one of the, at that time, what were there like 30 cases in
Yeah,
America?
hardly any.
You know what I mean? Like there was, the numbers were astronomical. And I just remember thinking, I was like, there's no way. So the reason I thought that I had the flu is because I come home, my wife doesn't get sick. My 4-year-old gets sick for about 4 days, but it's pretty mild. And then a week later, my 1-year-old gets sick, and she gets the flu, and she's got a really high fever. I mean, it was pretty scary for a few days. We took her in to the doctor's office, to the back of the doctor's office, and they came out and swabbed her and ran her flu test and told us she had flu A. So they put her on Tamiflu, and she got better, over the next couple days. But I don't know. Like my point is, I never got a flu test. We just assumed that my 1-year-old, but it was like a week and a half later that my 1-year-old got the flu. I don't know. It just doesn't really add up, quite honestly. So I don't know, man. Like I really, really go back and forth. I'll be super happy when they come out with the antibody test, because
Amen.
Yeah.
I think I really, really think that I had it and I was a mild symptom case. And yeah, for what
Well,
it's
they were
worth.
talking yesterday that it takes like 15 seconds for the antibody test. Like they can tell, they can tell the extremities, and
Yeah.
how awesome will that be?
For me, I think it's scary because we've never in our society had to go through this. As we travel around the world, those cultures and things, they're it's part of their culture. They've had this happen to them before. Being in China or going South America, or we haven't. And so for us, it's all brand new.
Well,
And
5 years ago when we were in China, we thought it was a huge deal. They were protesting. There were some of their citizens that had been jailed and for spreading propaganda that wasn't consistent with their leaders' teachings or whatever
in the
prophecy.
streets of Hong Kong.
In the streets of Hong Kong, and we were like, we've had protests here in the States, the sit-ins and the bonfires and all that kind of stuff. It was different. It was like, man, I just thinking, how we have not had to live through that. And then, there's been pandemics in other countries that we've kind of witnessed through video and things like that. But now, as it's sitting in our lap and in our yards and in our 24/7 of our lives, it's just amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, because the apparel manufacturing business, and because of apparel costs, like we search, some of our products are made 100% in the USA. They're really, really hard to get, and it's really expensive to fight. As we grow and as we get bigger, I think we'll get to a point of better relationships here in the US. I think this will help a lot, to where a lot of our rural cloth products are made. But I can tell you that I've already told our director, basically our chief design officer, I've already told her, like, we're done with China. Like I am as anti-China now as I've ever been in my entire life. Like I don't care what the costs are. I don't care if I have to shut the company down. Like whatever comes to it. Like I'm not making our products in China anymore. Now I'm not saying I won't make them in some other countries. I think there's some other countries that are close to China that get a really bad rap. Um, that get a bad rap, like Bangladesh, U.S. ally. A lot of manufacturing and things happen over there. We've actually sent aid to them. And India is another country that we have a pretty good relationship with, that has some decent manufacturing capabilities. Until cost to get to a point, everybody's like, why is your products not made in America? I'm like, because you don't want to pay $80 for a
Right,
cap.
right, exactly.
Like,
We get it.
We know
Hey,
that
how
feeling.
come you don't make your helmet in U.S.? Well, because you can't afford an $1,800 helmet.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm like, if you want to buy an $80 cap and a $50 T-shirt, I mean, I can make it
I'll
happen.
get
But
it. Yeah.
I've done it, and the model and the consumers have proven to me time and time again they don't want to do it. And I think that there's a lot of different cap companies and a lot of companies out there that are saying like that their products are 100% made in the USA, and some of them may be, but like even the product that one of the challenges we had is we did have a cap early on that was 100% made in America, but we couldn't get the patches made here. So the patch would have to come from China to go on a 100% made in the USA cap that we were still technically allowed to say was 100% made in the USA, but it was a lie.
Yeah, but you
So
know it. Yeah.
I would rather just have the cap made in Bangladesh, which a lot of our caps are made there now. We have a great cap factory, which, by the way, every Richardson cap on the planet that everybody loves is made in Bangladesh. So, I mean, you know, I love it when people email me all the time. It's like, your stuff sucks and it's not made in America. And I'm like, okay, well, go show me. Just go pick a cap. I don't care which cap you go in your closet, any cap. And I can probably guarantee you with a 99% accuracy, like, it was made somewhere else, because there's just not very many, you know, caps made. I think Joey and those guys over at Huey, I think they bought that cap factory down in South Texas. That's awesome for them. I mean, I think that's incredible. Just a, you know, would be a dream come true for us one day, but seems like a really cool thing that they've been able to do with that.
Well, thank you, Brandon, for taking a little bit of time out of your day from watching the stock market to join us here on the podcast.
It's the only gambling opportunity that I have right now. So I mean, that works so good.
Stay safe, wash your hands, and we'll catch up with you again down the road. It's been good talking to you today, and thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Yeah, man, for sure. See you guys.
See you, bud.
Thank you guys for joining us. This is another episode of the Two Big Guys and Grover podcast. We will see you next time.